Coming up on today's show, we have director and producer Josh Mills in studio to talk about his brand new film, Brother's Keeper. It's coming soon, you guys. We will give you a look at just how far our new set has come as we chat with the set designer. He tells us what to look forward to as the set is almost completed. Plus, stick around to hear the latest in music and entertainment news with Caroline Lusk and details on smart new suitcases that will make it almost impossible to lose on your next trip. Hot Off the Press starts right now. Well, guys, I'm really excited to be joined by this week's guest to the show. We have producer and director Josh Mills, and he's here to talk about his brand new film, Brother's Keeper. Josh, thank you so much for being here today.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so let's jump in. Excited to hear about this film. It's going to be available to people here pretty soon, and in case our viewers haven't heard about it and haven't maybe looked on the web and read some things about it, or haven't already seen a preview, want to kind of talk about the storyline. I know it's one about two brothers and kind of on different paths in life, but they ultimately kind of come together and find some forgiveness. And tell me a little about kind of the storyline and why you were excited to work on this film.
Sure, and that's exactly right. It basically is a period piece. It takes place in 1950s Georgia. And the story revolves around two twin brothers, Pete and Andy Goodwin. And they pretty much grew up on the wrong side of the tracks, and they witness some pretty horrible things as children. They lose their parents at an early age, and we do define that, in the movie. But throughout their growth, they do take two different paths. One of them decides that they're going to live their life to the fullest, and he wants to become a Baptist preacher and serve the Lord. And he's a varsity athlete and excels at everything he does, and wants to go off to Reedsville and study to be a Baptist preacher, et cetera, et cetera. The other brother takes a little bit of a different path. He smokes, he drinks, he fights, he's constantly getting in trouble, barely makes it to class. His only objective really is there's definitely no relationship with God. The only relationship he has is with his brother Pete. He feels that he has to protect him. And that's because at an early age, when this tragedy happened with their parents, it was Andy that witnessed it and kind of shielded his brother from it. So he became hardened over the years until they were roughly about 18. As the story progresses through some twist of events, and some fabricated evidence, one of the brothers, the good brother, if you want to call him the good brother,
sure,
Pete,
we will for this.
For this, we'll call him the good brother. He actually gets convicted of a murder that he doesn't commit and gets sentenced to the Georgia State Penitentiary, and eventually, because of some influence of the most powerful family in town, this kind of boss hog type wealthy individual, not only does he get convicted through this fabricated justice for a murder he doesn't commit, but he also gets the death penalty.
Wow.
So you've got kind of a race against time of how is the bad brother, Andy, going to save his good brother Pete from these circumstances.
Right. Okay. It sounds like I'm loving the storyline, right? Well, we have a little clip of the trailer. We didn't show them all of it because it's kind of like a little cliffhanger at the end there, but we want you guys to check it out. We'll come back and talk to Josh more about the film. Watch this.
You know I wouldn't stand a chance without you.
Don't be afraid. True love has no room for fear.
I thank God every day for my true love.
Isn't the guy supposed to pick up the girl? Aren't you supposed to take a date to the prom? Wow, Maggie.
It's beautiful out tonight. It's perfect. I can't wait to marry you, Maggie.
I fell in love with you there, Maggie. I've been in love with you ever since. What does Pete have that I don't have, huh?
What's going on?
Okay, so yeah, that's a cliffhanger right there.
Yeah, for sure.
What's going to happen next? It looks really, really good. Okay, I've got to make one little comment because you and I were chatting before and you said you guys used real twins, which I appreciate. So many times we see in films use one person and I know they make it work, but how did you find twin brothers that were talented? And it seems like it'd be hard to find two guys to work on a film together, right?
Absolutely it was. It was not the easiest thing.
Yeah.
It's one thing to be able to find twins. It's another thing to be able to find two twins that can both act.
Right.
So it was one of those things to where we just kept turning over rocks. We did a national search. It wasn't just, even though we're in Los Angeles.
Right. You have to look everywhere for twins,
we looked everywhere.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Our casting directors went out to affiliates all over the country trying to find these twins. And literally, we were exhausted, and we had gone through countless numbers of some real talent. I mean, we found some
Sure.
talent, but it was one of those things to where we just knew the chemistry when they came in. It was the very last audition of our very last day of casting.
Yeah.
We were exhausted, and Alex and Graham Miller came walking in, and within 3 minutes, we
You knew.
knew. I mean,
Wow.
we absolutely knew. And it was like, thank you. You know, it's like
Yeah.
we finally found, because I mean, everything revolves around them.
Right, you couldn't
carry the
film
movie.
without the twins.
Right, exactly, exactly. So.
All right, very cool. Well, I know, Josh, you and I were also talking earlier, and you've been producing for a while, but this was your first, one of your first times directing a feature film. Was that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so what made you want to step into this role, and was it specifically, was there something special about this project and why you really wanted to be a part of it in this way?
You know, it's weird. You know, our company, Desert Wind Studios and 1010 Entertainment, we didn't get necessarily into the business to do faith-based films.
Okay.
That wasn't something that I really aspired to do as I was going through production over the last 15 years. It was something that kind of found me. I mean, all I knew what a faith-based film was like Passion of the Christ.
Sure.
Or maybe the Left Behind series of the 80s and 90s, you know, that kind of scenario. I just wasn't familiar with the term faith-based film, and I think up until, 3 or 4 years ago before Fireproof, I think a lot of people weren't familiar with the term faith-based film.
Yeah.
This film kind of fell across our desk as a short story. It was called The Gift and the Giver, and I read it, and, you know, I kind of, there was something, even though I wasn't necessarily really attached to the overall writing of the short story, it was the underlying message, and it was the clever twists and plots.
Yeah.
So I called this gentleman who had submitted the short story, who really just had cold called us and said, hey, would you guys be interested in doing a short story based on you know, so I could do, or excuse me, a short film that I could do for my church. And I
Yeah.
said, well, it's not a real prudent business decision as a filmmaker to do a short film, but I'll, you know, to be polite, I'll take a look at it. So I read it, and it was just something that spoke to me, and I asked my business partners to read it, and as they got back to me, I said, would you guys be interested in really developing this into a feature film? And they said, yeah. So we immediately optioned it, went into full speed, and the more that we developed this and the more that we became part of it, the more I felt comfortable that it was something that we needed to direct as well, as opposed to produce. And so, you know, and it's kind of in my wheelhouse. I'm from Fort Worth, Texas. I'm from a relatively small town mentality.
Okay.
And there was just parts of it that kind of spoke to me that, you know, that were...
These boys growing up in a small town too.
Yeah, it was just, it was kind of an organic situation for me. And so TJ and I got in there, and we got our hands dirty, and after Brianna came up with the first screenplay, first draft, we kind of took it from there and just continued to mold it to what we have now.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, you said something I thought was really interesting, and I kind of want to hear a little bit more about it. You were saying, you know, a few years ago, a lot of us, like you said, what was a faith-based film? You know, we don't really see a lot of that or hear a lot of that. We weren't going to the movie theaters and having that as an option of something to watch. What was it that kind of changed that for you, kind of opening up that, you know, the door, I guess, for you to think, oh, maybe I could be involved in something like this? What changed?
One of the things when we started Desert Wind back in 2008, one of the commonalities that all the partners had is that we are all men of faith. And we always wanted to do projects that kind of made a difference. Again, didn't know really anything about faith-based films, but one of the things that we would do when we came in the morning is I would always write Romans 8:31 in the top corner of this big war board we had. There was a big window that overlooked this area of Woodland Hills in Northern California, or Northern LA. And one day, one of my business partners walked in and says, what's Romans 8:31? I was like, oh, you know, if God is for us, who can be against us? You know, it's just something that I kind of, that I do privately. And he was like, he got really interested in that. And it opened up conversation in the office.
That's so cool.
Again, not necessarily going towards faith-based television, but I think when this project hit the, you know, we had the opportunity to do it, again, it was just something that we gravitated towards. And then as we started developing this project and as we went into production, that's when the faith-based phenomenon really started hitting Hollywood.
Yeah, we've been seeing so much of that now.
Right, and so we've been kind of watching it grow over the last 4 years that we've been kind of immersed in it, and it's really kind of taken on a, you know, because, you know, growing up, being in the industry for 15 years, a lot of times when I would talk to colleagues and stuff, you know, hey, what are you working on right now? Oh, I'm working on this faith-based production. You'll still kind of get the proverbial eye roll, like, oh, production value is probably going to be subpar, it's going to be weak storyline, you know. And we really want to separate ourselves from that. You know, when people ask me, are you a faith-based filmmaker? I said, no, I'm a filmmaker who's a Christian. Because I don't want there to be a divisiveness there. I think that our films, I think faith-based films should be better. I think they should be more creative. I think they should be, you know, have
Yeah.
higher production quality.
Right.
And so by saying that you're a faith-based filmmaker, I feel like you're continuing to, you know, to create that divisiveness in Hollywood.
Sure.
I want the faith-based industry to be respected for their ability to make films as filmmakers.
Right.
And I think that as we continue to increase our products, it's going to have more of an impact on the world.
Yeah, yeah. Josh, what's your hope for viewers as they're watching this film? You know, I'm sure to be encouraged, to learn some sort of lesson, but what kind of message do you want to impart?
That's a good question. When we shot the film, we teamed up with a marketing partner by the name of Propeller Consulting. There's south of Nashville, Dan Merrill. And Dan Merrill told us that we needed to make a choice. We need to make a choice. Is this going to be a secular film? Is this going to be a faith-based film? It's going to be a faith-based film. What is the underlying message? And it really got us thinking, because if you watch Brothers Keeper, you're going to see elements of redemption and salvation and forgiveness. But the underlying message of this film is forgiveness.
Very good.
And so I think when it comes down to it, it's just your unconditional love and your ability after being extremely wronged, which you're going to find out in this movie, that it's forgiveness.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for your time, Josh.
Of course.
I'm excited to spread the word. People can go to brotherskeeperfilm.com to get more information on the film. And that's all for this episode of Hot Off the Press, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm your host, Taylor Ryan. I'll see you guys again next time. Bye-bye.